So, hi everybody. Welcome to our continuing discussions about different kinds of global religion. And today we've got a real special treat. An old friend of mine is going to join us in just a second. I can see him on screen right now. But first, let me just say a couple things. Sarvatma, I have a couple announcements, if you don't mind, just to bring everybody up to speed, because we have some things coming up in class real soon. For example, the group projects, each of you are going to be working on your project, and you know that you contact other members of the group. Each of you are divided into, the whole class is separated into groups of 5 people each, 18 groups actually. And you make initial contact through your forum room, or you can just contact each other in email. I sent each of you the email addresses of other people in your group, and your presentations, will be at the end of the week. And I've given you information about how you go about working on your project in your group. And just to remind you, a week from today is our multiple choice exam. And in case you're in a panic about that, don't worry. On Monday, I'm going to go over in detail what's going to be in the exam and how to prepare for it, even though the exam itself is just a week from now. Obviously, this weekend is probably a good time to start reviewing all of the lectures and all of the readings, because the exam will cover just what's in the lectures and in the reading. So if you've missed a lecture, if you're watching this by recording, or if you're watching this live and you missed a lecture, you can find all of the recordings on the Gaucho Space site and start binge watching right now, because you'll need to know all of that information when we have the exam next Wednesday, and you'll need to have done all the reading, because we'll have a question, probably at least one from each reading and at least one from each lecture. So prepare for that. So today we've got a real treat. We're talking about different forms of religion and new forms of religion. And today we're going to look at a religious tradition that really is old, in a sense that it has old roots, but the particular group is fairly new. And this is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It focuses on the idea of Krishna and the love of Krishna. We talked about, remember, we talked about Hinduism, we talked about bhakti, and the importance of that kind of the love of God and God's love in us, expressed often through music and dancing. And this is a group that really embraces that. Is commonly known as the Hare Krishna movement, in part because of this Mool mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare, 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 Rama, Hare, Rama, Krishna, Rama, Hare, really just 3 different names for God. And so, but it is a mantra, it is a chant that, as we'll know more about today, is considered to be very efficacious in centering the mind and blocking out incorrect thoughts and trying to get right with the spiritual aspect of the universe and the spiritual aspect of yourself. This teaching, this way of this practice in a form of an organization came to the United States through this guy, Swami Prabhupada, whom I mentioned to you. I think that back years ago when I was in Berkeley and I was the coordinator of the religious studies program at Berkeley, I was his host. I met him and then arranged to have him give talks at the Center for South Asia Studies, where I was the project director at the time. And I was very impressed. He was really quite a remarkable fellow. He had been a businessman, Charan Day, in Bengal before that, but then he wanted to bring Krishna consciousness to the rest of the world. And so he did. And so the Hare Krishna movement was born. His tomb or samad is located in Vrindavan, Krishna's pilgrimage center. That's that town I mentioned to you, near the town of Mathura. But if you're in Delhi and you're going to Agra, stop off and go to Vrindavan and go to see the great samad of Swami Prabhupada, which is in some ways the center of international Krishna consciousness. But when he came here, he started teaching. A lot of his early followers were Westerners, people who, for a variety of reasons, found in his teachings an antidote to that kind of confused, uncertain lives that they had, and found it a message of centering and of transcendence and transformation. And the Hare Krishna people are kind of visible in part because they brought Krishna consciousness to the streets. Here they are in London with, singing and chanting, and people following them. They're really quite visible. And in that sense, they're a very interesting movement, particularly in the 60s. And visible also for another reason, the quality of food, vegetarian food. Our guest for a while had some really great vegetarian food that he used to serve up outside of Ellison Hall. I remember years ago when I was there, but Sarvatma Das, I think the food center, put a kibosh on that, right? Because they thought you were muscling into their territory. Well, we'll find out in a second. But at the center of all of this is that Mool mantra that I talked about, the chant. And here to talk more about that, and also to talk about, I hope, a little bit about his personal experiences, how he came onto this path, what it means to him now, is in fact my old friend Sarvatma Das. And Sarvatma, you're not in Santa Barbara anymore. You wandered off to some strange place. Where I mean, through the miracle of Zoom, of course, we're all together. But where are you right now?
Right now we are in Denver, in one of the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. We lived in Santa Barbara until last April 20th, 2020, and then because of COVID, we had you remember we used to have this vegetarian lunches at UCSB, and eventually the administration gave in to the pressure by the different concessions serving not very healthy stuff like Panda Express and Wendy's and so on. Right. But they got jealous because we had a lot of people coming over. So we relocated.
I used to love your food.
I know. Everybody but the fast food vendors loved our food. And then one of the people that used to come to our lunches, he was a TA from LA. He was teaching law and society, and eventually he got the job of Dean of Religious Life at USC. So he gave us a call and said, "Come and save us. We are as desperate as I was when I was an undergrad as well." So we actually relocated our operation to USC, where we served lunches for about 10 years. But then COVID came and made a mess out of everything. And because we were at USC in a property, and there's only remote learning nowadays, we had no customers, so we had to relocate. So we came to Denver, and here we are in Denver for now. And I hear this is the last class you're going to teach, Mark. That's very sad.
That's a rumor.
Okay.
Well, I'm not giving up. I'm still going to teach occasionally, maybe not always at the University of California, Santa Barbara, but yeah, you're right. I'm officially retiring at the end of this term. And then I would be, still hanging around. I'm not disappearing from the face of the earth. I've got still a lot of teaching in me and a lot of books I'm going to be writing and a lot of things I'm going to be doing. But
well, I hope you're like George Foreman, that just come back and fight for the title again.
I'm not sure the analogy is perfect, but I'll So let's talk about you. So are you still doing the same stuff? And I mean, are you still into Krishna consciousness, and do you still have a community that you are connect with at Denver?
Actually, that was one of the reasons to move, that we thought we will try to find a community akin to our principles and philosophy and lifestyle and diet and so on. And we thought Denver will be a good fit. I don't think it's going to be the final destination. I think we are going to continue to move In a few months, we are planning to go probably to what is called the Eco Farm in Pennsylvania called Gita Nagari. It's a Krishna conscious community. They have a commercial dairy with ahimsa, non-violent dairy, meaning that the cows will never be killed or sold or mistreated. Same with the bulls, and they have a very vibrant program and a lot of people, and we wanna join them. So hopefully that's where we're gonna end up. But we haven't given up on Krishna consciousness, as Krishna hasn't given up on us either. So we are firmly situated. And it's funny, I was thinking right before we connected that how does God see religions? I mean, because we have the perspective of humans looking at religions, and from our perspective, seems like God's MMA channel, God's UFC is watch religions fighting with each other. See who beats up whom and who takes a cake, and how they never get along. But I think that's a very archaic idea. I think religions are simply an expression of how one can get to God, because of our narrow-mindedness. So we can't see the entire picture. So we only need a few frames as reference. So I worship God in this way, and that's the only way that God can be worshipped or understood, and so on. But it's silly. They give the example of an elephant, how 10 blind people describe an elephant, and they're all touching different parts of the elephant, and they cannot agree. Oh, yeah, the elephant is like, it's huge, it's massive, it's like a tree, because they're grabbing the leg. And one is grabbing the tusk and saying, oh, it's very sharp and very hard. And the other one is grabbing the tail and says it's hairy, like wires. One grabs the ear and says, oh, it's floppy and just shakes a lot, it's very thin. But because they're all blind, they can't see the elephant. So we have to actually detach ourselves from the perspective that us as humans see God, divinity, the universe, providence, and so on, and be a little more kind to each other. To say, okay, my brother is worshiping in this way because that's the way he can accept it. Great, I'm all respectful, and then you have the Krishna conscious, the Krishna devotees. You see them very colorful and making a lot of noise. Although it's not noise, actually, it's mantra. Mantra, as you well said, is a sound vibration that comes from the transcendental realm, meant to awaken that dormant love of God that we already have. Because it's not like we have to, we're going on divine Tinder to see if we can, match with a good God and we can fall in love. Actually, we have that. It's dormant, just like there is fire within wood. You just have to get to it. You just have to heat it up to a certain temperature in order to get the fire to come out. So that's yes, we actually try to understand divinity based on mantras. Actually, in the scriptures, which are very vast, what we use the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, etc. It is indicated that in different eras, the cosmos is divided in different eras. This being the one we are undergoing right now, being the shortest one, called Kali, still is very long. It's over 400,000 years. There are different methods for self-realization, which are actually the most, I would say, effective at the time. Just like I'm sure curing a headache with trepanation was a very good method in the Middle Ages, but it's no longer being used. So at this particular point, big sacrifices and building churches and mosques and temples and all this, extreme meditation and austerities that were used in the past were very effective. But nowadays, we're kind of short-handed. We are being dealt a pretty bad hand as far as intelligence and memory, and good qualities. People are always fighting with each other. So the method given for us as a concession is something that you can fit in a t-shirt as a mantra meditation, that you actually chant the mantra, particularly this Hare Krishna mantra, because mantras are divine words and nothing more divine than God's own name. Just like, everybody likes to be called by their own name. God likes to be called by his own name and has the potency, being God, being absolute, of being non-different. The nomenclature, the name of God and God are not different, whereas our name and us are different. We can see that the substance water and the name water are different. So by chanting God's names, not mindless repetition, but with intention, with devotion, with love, like as if we had amnesia, and all of a sudden, all we have to do is not learn something new, but remember something that we've forgotten. So this is the purpose of the mantra, to relieve us from the amnesia of believing that we are the body, which we are not, believing that we are mundane, which are not. We are divine, of the same divine nature of God, except in a minute fractionary way. And by chanting, the more you chant, the more you can see. So this is not the earth is not God's MMA channel. This is a different. He's tolerating our stupidity, not actually feeding it.
So, Sarvatma Das, how did you come on this path? Have you always followed it? Were your parents followers of Hare Krishna? I know the answer to this, but I do want to hear you tell the story again, because it's really a very interesting story.
Okay, and my parents, I grew up in a secular Jewish environment in Buenos Aires, Argentina. If you know anything about South American religious preferences, most people in Argentina are Roman Catholics. I would say it's a 90% strong. And then there's a small minority of Jewish Muslims and, Episcopalians, et cetera, et cetera. So in my environment, my parents never spoke of spirituality, of God. It wasn't one of these themes of conversation, topics of conversation at all. But I was very inquisitive, and I always had many philosophical questions that I could not get answered by anybody. I really was searching for answers. What's the purpose of life, and why do we die, and why do we suffer? Why do some people suffer and some people enjoy? Why are some people rich and some people poor? Where do we come from? How did everything, and what is death? That was one of my main concerns, that even if everything is okay now, we're gonna kick the bucket one day. So what's the point? You accumulate, whether it's wealth or friends or family or riches or knowledge or titles, and then guess what? You have to turn them in at the end. Just they amounted to nothing. So is this the only life? Is there an afterlife? And how does it happen? So I got to the point up to the point of asking, is there a God? Because I didn't grow up in that milieu with that kind of education. So at a certain point, I was living in Uruguay, a different country in South America, and I had an epiphany where I actually I was with some friends sharing some pot, and I had an epiphany. I said, oh, there must be a God. There are signs of intelligence everywhere, and I missed them. For some reason, I was spacing out. I was looking in the wrong direction. There is an orchard of orange trees within a seed of a single orange seed. So this is planned. This is pre-planned. The sun is coming up at the same distance from the earth every day. It's not like the sun moved a few miles south, and then we will be frying. We'll definitely, or if the sun moves in a different direction, we'll be freezing to death. So there is an organization, there is a planning. It's not like you go to a town and at 7 p.m. you see the lights gone and you think, oh, that's a miracle. No, there is some engineer in the power plant, turning the switch. Something is happening because there's someone behind it. So I got it. I finally got the point. Oh, there is a God. Now my search begins. And the search actually wasn't meaningful, I would say. I mean, it had some importance through the process, but a search is not meaningful until you know what you're looking for. Just like if somebody's looking for gold and has no idea what gold looks like, it can be cheated. So I finally understood, okay, I'm looking for God. That's the direction I'm taking. So I was very open-minded. I didn't care, who's God or what God, or I was open to all interpretations. And unfortunately, the people that surrounded me weren't. They were not very keen on, it's kind of like you tell the end of a joke before they finish telling the joke. I ruined their whatever ruminations by bringing God into the conversation. So I basically had to detach myself from my current living situation and move. And I heard from a friend that there was an abandoned hippie village in North Brazil, and it's near the capital city of the state of Bahia, the city of Salvador, and near a fisherman's village. There was an abandoned hippie village with a couple huts. So I decided, okay, nobody wants to talk to me about God. I'm going to be by myself for a while. So I somehow or other, I sacrificed a gold ring, bought a ticket from Montevideo to Rio de Janeiro, and then hitchhiked and took buses for who knows how long. I mean, Brazil is huge. Until I got to this fisherman's village, and then I walked through the jungle until I got to a spot where there was an abandoned hut and a river with drinking water. The ocean was on one side, and there was a little lake and a forest and coconut trees. So every time a coconut tree fell, I used my Swiss knife to open it and drink the juice. Otherwise, I would drink water. So I stayed there, and I went to pretty deep meditation and study for the better part of 6 months. But I had no intention of ever leaving this place until one day I decided to go to town and get some more pot because I was running out. And to me, pot was the door of perception. That's the way I got into spirituality. So when I got to town, I went to make a phone call to tell my parents after 6 months of disappearance that I was okay. I was just doing my own thing. And I met a Krishna devotee that was in a wheelchair. And because I was reading books about healing, I tried to get her into accepting my help. I said, I have a God's gift to heal small ailments. This is a major one. If you're in a wheelchair, I can't guarantee you're going to get up, but I will try my best. I was reading, doing prayers and fasting and mantras and so on. So she said, I really appreciate your intention, but I'm not the body. Even if I can walk, where am I going to go? Yeah, I'm going to die anyway. And I feel half of the pain that you feel because I've been paralyzed from birth, from the waist down. And I got the body that God gave me because I must have done something pretty bad. So this is the result. It's called karma. Action has a equal and opposite reaction, just like the third law of motion of Isaac Newton. And if I need help, it will be of a spiritual nature, not material nature. Though people see my body, they don't see me, the soul. So they think I need help, and I do take advantage of it at times. Wherever I need to go, I can go anywhere because people feel pity for someone in a wheelchair. So thank you, but no thank you. I was blown away. So well, obviously you know more than I do, and the most people I met. You have to tell me everything you know. So she told me she was part of the Krishna Conscious Society in Brazil, and I said, well, okay, I've been looking for this all my life. So what should I do? She said, why don't you go to the temple and see if you can become a monk? Seems like you're already a monk. You're following very strict principles and practicing austerities. And, I hadn't eaten anything solid for 6 months. So obviously you can really make it if you apply yourself. So I said I would like to learn a little more. I don't want to go empty-handed and not knowing anything. So let me learn from you. Let's spend a few days together. So she lived in an island across the bay, and we went there with some friends. And she taught me whatever she knew for the next few days. And on Sunday, remember the old Sunday love feasts in every temple in the world. I went to the temple and I said, I'm in. Count me in. I'm one of you guys. I want to be one of you. I want to be a pure devotee. I want to relearn how to love God. And it seems like you guys have it all planned out. So count me in. So that's my story. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
And you're still a part of the movement.
Oh yes, that was in 1980. So it's been 41 years now.
Wow. And have there been changes over that 41 years? And changes in you and changes in the movement?
Fortunately, yes. To both questions, yes. Obviously, because this was a culture that was transplanted from India, it was quite patriarchal, a little bit that didn't see men and women equally, some type of 19th century chauvinism. Also, that the small people didn't have much of a voice. Education was given by those who were available and not those who were qualified. The food was always very opulent and very nice, but not always healthy. So all these changes have taken place. So fortunately, yes, it's a much broader society as well. We're just a bunch of teenagers running around with a head cut off. So you can expect many wonderful things. And myself, yes, I think I've made some progress. I'm not the same guy I used to be. I think I've matured a little bit, perhaps because of age. I'm not sure, but I try to apply myself, and I've been chanting for 4 years, and it works. Because if it didn't work, I would have given it up a long time ago. So it works for me, it works for someone else. It's like good medicine. You don't have to belong, even if you wear the Lakers shirt or the Celtics shirt, it doesn't matter. If the medicine is good, it will act equally to both. So it doesn't matter where you are at, how old are you, what race, what gender you have. If the medicine works, it works. So the mantra really works.
But you said that you were a monk, but you have an occupation, you make money. I think you're married. And
yeah, I've been married for over 23 years, and yes, I have an occupation. I'm a gourmet and vegan chef. Yes, up until April, I was making money doing that. Things may take a different turn now, but because you see, when you met Prabhupada in the 70s, The core of the Hare Krishnas was a bunch of celibate monks, and, and they were all young, and they were living in the temple or in the vicinity of the temple. However, things have increased. Now those monks, most of them got married, most of them have children. Now we are in the third generation after that. And you may be riding a bus or an airplane or a train or shopping or selling something to someone who is a Hare Krishna, and you don't know. You don't know because they don't dress, because they are not monks. They don't
always know, because they Hare Krishnas always shave their hair except for a little top notch at the bottom. They would always wear orange robes. They would be lumped together. They used to say they would be celibate. When did that change?
Well, there is vestiges, large vestiges of that. There is still monasteries. There is still monks. There is there is the same core, but the society is so large that the majority are householders. As far as myself, age is making me lose my hair and become, shaved again by force.
So God is shaving your head.
Yes, he's doing a pretty good job with a pretty strong razor.
So
actually, I do sport a helipad now. Now I have a place where helicopters can land, and
on your head.
This is what happens. Actually, as you get older, your hormone, you have hormonal changes, and testosterone drops when you get older, so your hair falls. Supposed to. If you're Ronald Reagan or someone like that, you may have a full set of hair when you're very old, but most people don't have that kind of privilege.
Well, I guess I still have my testosterone. I don't know. I still have my hair.
I think you do. You're an exception, Mark.
So when I first knew you, you were with a group of people. I mean, there were other people around. Used to perform in a group. I say perform. Used to do the chanting and the music in a group.
Yes.
But do you still have those connections?
I do. Actually, but now it's via Zoom. All is done. Sometimes I do kirtans, which is the chanting, the devotional chanting, on Zoom for places like Italy or South America or anywhere else. But there's with the social distancing, it's difficult to get a good gig with the musicians in situ.
Right. So how important is that to you in your spiritual life, to be connected with others? Is this a practice that you can do solely by yourself and never actually be in contact with somebody else who's a part of the community?
Prabhupada didn't like that. I mean, it's not a common practice. He said one stick can be broken easily, but many sticks put together, they are hard to break. So association of like-minded people is always nice. Like if you're by yourself, you're actually giving room to your mind to tell you all kind of crazy stuff. If you associate with saintly people, you may become saintly yourself. And if you associate with drunkards, well, you're gonna wake up with a headache and not remembering what happened last night. So this is the importance of association. I do enjoy very much the association of my peers, and I seek it voluntarily. I'm in touch with a lot of people from all over the world, and whether it's WhatsApp or text or Zoom or email.
So what about your wife? Does she follow the practice also?
Oh, she's way better than me. She's a very pious, devotional lady who has she's very kind, good natured, great cook. Yes, she's wonderful. She's shy, which is not something that I didn't come in my list of ingredients.
That doesn't seem to be your problem.
No, not a problem.
So
yeah, I usually say that people like me or are amused by me, but they love her. Yeah.
So at the core of your spiritual practices, I mean, do you study, do you read, do you get together, is there a sermon, or is it solely, do you focus on the music and the chanting?
No, this is the music. The music is a vehicle to carry the mantra. It makes it a lot easier, more attractive, but the mantra is essential. It's like having the 3D glasses at the beginning of the movie. You see, if you read a lot or you hear discourses and so on, you get the gist of the philosophy and everything you need to provide for yourself, but you don't get the special effects. So this is the advantage of the chanting. The chanting gives relief, gives shape makes it a living philosophy. That's how easy it becomes. So yes, I do hear discourses and give it myself. I do give chats and conferences and listen to other people. I do read scriptures and other related books. I do write, but the chanting has to be there. And I did make a vow. The serious practitioners, you see, there are different degrees of practitioners. Because Lord Chaitanya, who was Krishna's latest incarnation, appeared in the 1500s, he was asked, who is a devotee of Krishna? What's the definition? And he was very broad. He said, anyone who chants Hare Krishna is a devotee. So he was very liberal in his understanding. So yes, from the beginning of that definition, anyone who chants Hare Krishna, you can consider him a devotee. But then there are different degrees, and when you make a commitment, then you may get initiated if you follow certain principles, celibacy and no meat of fish or eggs, and no intoxication, no gambling, and you chant on your beads, like a rosary of beads, japa, a certain number of rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra. So I made a vow to chant 16 rounds of 108 beads every day for the rest of my life, which is 1,728 times the mantra. So that's I haven't given up on that, and my wife also. So you become a serious practitioner. That's how you kind of divide the crowds. You at that point you like to hang out with people like you, that they're like if you play a sport and you're at a certain level, you don't want to play with other people that are below that. Not because you see them as inferiors, but because you have a certain level and you want to keep practicing with people at your level. So that's where we are at. And this takes an hour and a half to 2 hours a day to chant the mantra.
So every day you do this, but and again, by yourself or with a group, first thing in the morning, what's your routine like?
We try to wake up early to, the monks wake up before sunrise. I don't think I can do that right now. So I wake up anytime between 5 and 7, and I take a shower right away, and then I try to chant, and then I cook breakfast. We have many things that we do during the day, just like an ordinary next door neighbor will do, except that we don't indulge in the eating of meat, fish, or eggs, or we don't take drugs or even coffee or tea. We just live a very healthy lifestyle. Prabhupada emphasized simple living. You don't have to complicate your life, and high thinking. And seems like the society took a rerouting. There's complicated living and very little thinking. So we try to do it the other way around. Because I don't know who said this, but they said the brain is not a muscle, but it should be exercised regularly. So we take this seriously.
So when you do chanting at home, I assume with your wife, do you do it musically, and do you use instruments like harmonium?
No. When you do your meditation on your beads, you say the mantra loud enough so you can hear it. It's not for others. Then there is another stage, which is what you witness many times, which is called bhajan, where you sing with instruments in a soft, very pleasing, melodious way. And then there is kirtan, which is the exuberant dancing included. Everybody, the more the merrier. That's it. But when you do your meditation, it's a personal thing. You just do it by yourself. Not you don't have to be. You can be in a room full of other people doing the same thing, but then you're not listening to everybody else. You're doing your own meditation.
But when you lead kirtan on Zoom, I presume you sing and have a harmonium and you have music at the same time?
I do. I certainly do. I do have a harmonium here. I got it ready because I know you're a fan.
Well, can you give us an example?
Yes, I'll be happy to. I may have to move the computer so to put it facing the instrument. There you have it.
Explain what a harmonium is. You've just kind of shown us, but it looks
Okay.
like a miniature reed organ.
It is a reed organ. It's very much the same principle as an accordion. There's metal reeds, very thin, that vibrate when air goes by, and there is a pump here. This bellow puts air through the reeds and press on the keys, and you hear the sound. And this instrument was originally German, and was not this particular one. This is made in India, but it was in the, I believe, 1800s that it could have been the Portuguese monks, probably Jesuits, that they went to South India, and they took it with them, and the Indians kind of made it their own. They incorporated as a mainstay of their devotional music. So here you have it as a harmonium, and usually this is congregationally. I mean, but people sing by themselves, but usually is responsive chanting. So one chants a mantra and everybody repeats, and there are other instruments, drums, cymbals, and flutes and cellos and whatever you have nearby. You know, sometimes in some temples you find. I used to go to Europe every summer to do some circuit of different kirtan festivals, some very, very large. In Ukraine, we had one that was about 13,000 Krishna devotees will show up, and I didn't put any limitations. So people would, whatever. I remember seeing people on stage with trombones and cellos and violins and djembes and flutes, and yeah, fine with me. Just come up and go for it. It's like a big spontaneous gig. So you want me to sing a little bit?
Please.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Okay, you got your own private kirtan.
Very nice. And as you say, often there will be thousands of people singing that at the same time.
Oh yes, it's crazy. If you actually, you know my name, Sarvatma. If you type my name on YouTube, there are some videos of me doing kirtan for thousands and thousands of people, all dancing. So it's incredible. It's quite a display.
Now you played just a few minutes, but often it can go on much longer, for many minutes and an hour or so, or more hours.
Actually, I've done kirtans for about 6 hours sometimes. Yeah, and there are some temples where they do a special function where they will sing 24 hours. Of course, the leader, the one lead person leading, will switch, so to give his throat a break. But it goes on for 24 hours. As a matter of fact, there was one time in the early 80s that I was in India and I ate the wrong thing, very common thing to do in a third world country. And I was very sick. So I was in a guest house and there was no relief. I had no appetite and I couldn't move. I was feeling terrible. But next door, there was a little ashram, a little monastery, and people were chanting 24 hours a day, day after day. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And it was such a relief. It was wonderful to hear them. And you could hear some of the people had a raspy voice, not very good musical sense, but the mantra was there. It was great. It was quite a palliative experience, quite a relief from my miserable absorption in the sickness that I was undergoing.
And you, as you say, you still do it, but this 24 hours, this is without stopping, right? I mean, it's like a jam session that just keeps on. I remember going to see the Grateful Dead when I was,
of course,
back in the day, and they would just go on and on and on and on. And
yeah,
so
they had 45-minute songs. Yeah, this is more or less what a kirtan is. Somebody will sing the same melody even. I mean, some people change and they're very musical. Some people would sing the same melody for an hour or 2 hours responsively, and then some other person will come. I mean, just immediately. There is no interruption. There is no pause, and it's great because it's you see, that's the nature of the mantra. If you sing a mundane song, if you sing whatever, I can't even think of a song that all of your young students will relate to. Let's say Yellow Submarine, or people know Yellow Submarine by the Beatles. You sing it over and over, and after 5 minutes, you're okay. Let's move on. But
speaking of Yellow Submarine, that brings up the Beatles. And so if people are still familiar with the Beatles, they may have heard that Hare Krishna refrain in at least one of the Beatles songs. I think it was George Harrison introduced it.
Actually, and I Am the Walrus is there. even in Led Zeppelin, they singing Hare Hare. That's another reference. And George Harrison, obviously, made it very popular with his song "My Sweet Lord," where the full mantra is there. And actually, a lot of people who came to our movement heard George Harrison's song before, and they were familiar. Also, the play Hair, you remember that from 1960 something? They were singing the mantra. So it's been a household name for quite a while.
And did that come from the Hare Krishna movement? Did Harrison know about the movement?
Yeah, actually, George was, he met the founder of Prabhupada, and he became very good friends with several of the early devotees that they went to England. There were 3 couples from America, because in the beginning it was like that. Prabhupada would say, okay, how old are you? 18? Okay, go to Germany and open a center by yourself, even not knowing the language, not knowing anything about life or whatever. And because Prabhupada had just such power and charisma, and it was such an inspiration that the devotees will be, and he loved them so much, and they loved Prabhupada. So they will do anything for him. So they did that. And so 3 couples went to England, young couples. One of the couples had a small child, and they were able to, I just heard a story actually. They started baking apple pastries and turnovers and pies and taking it to Apple Records, where the Beatles were recording their albums in 1969, I think, 1969, 1970. And they went every day. And eventually, they just gave them to the receptionist. So the receptionist eventually, because there was so much food, they started passing out, and it got up to the Beatles, the sound engineers, George Martin, everybody had the Hare Krishna pies. And they stopped. They didn't bring any more. So they they went out desperate, searching for them. What's going on? And actually, George invited the devotees to come over and say, what do you guys do besides baking apple stuff? And he said, well, we have this philosophy and we chant this mantra. And do you have a musical group? And he said, yeah, we chant. So they showed George the mantra, and he said, this is great. I'm gonna produce a record. So they actually he produced the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra record, and it was on top of the pops, and it was #1 in Czechoslovakia and some of the eastern countries, and they produced a larger album, and the devotees travel around as if they were a musical group, singing all over Europe, sponsored by George Harrison and Apple. They actually recorded for Apple label, and then George eventually met Prabhupada, and they fell in love with each other, and he wanted to join. He wanted to shave his head and become a regular Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no, I don't think you should do that. I think I have better plans for you. Just whatever you do, add Krishna consciousness to it. So he wrote one album in particular called Living in the Material World. The lyrics and some of the songs actually are dedicated and speak about Prabhupada. That made, it went platinum. It just, so Prabhupada was very happy with him doing that. They didn't need another little monk running around the temple, he actually said, no, this is better. You do what you do well and put some spirituality into it. So that's basically the message. You don't have to become a monk. You have to actually, whatever you do best, just add Krishna consciousness. There is no lack of something else. So that's how he, and eventually all the Beatles met Prabhupada and the devotees. Prabhupada actually spent several months in Sydenhurst State, which was John Lennon's state. They had a trade. The devotees will work helping with getting the place in shape, because he bought it from someone else, and he wasn't up to par. And he gave him free rent. So all the devotees were living in John Lennon's estate, and Prabhupada was living there. There is a picture in the album Let It Be, where the four Beatles are standing outside of a particular building, small building, which actually was called the temple because Prabhupada lived there.
On that estate. All right.
Yes.
So the last time I was at the in Vrindavan at Prabhupada Samad, I was struck with the number of devotees, the Hare Krishna devotees who were from India or Indian. And I know initially the Prabhupada came to America and the whole idea was to bring Krishna consciousness to the West. But it now seems to be also developing in India. Is that a conscious move on the part of the movement, or did that just kind of happen?
Well, Prabhupada knew that the Indians were imitating the West. So it was very, very purposeful of him to bring his dancing white elephants to India to show the Indians what they should be doing. So once they saw the Westerners that they came from very good families and they had degrees and they had wealth and so on, which is what the Indians were aspiring to have, basically leave India, move to New York and get a job and make money and drive a big car. When they saw that these kids from America gave that up, that they said, no, this happiness is not there, then they actually started taking it seriously. And yes, it was a very, very deliberate decision by Prabhupada to show the Indians that they were giving up diamonds in pursuit of broken glass.
That's a wonderful analogy. Sarvatma Das, would you be open to some questions? There's some people in the class, the people who are online, obviously, if they're watching this by recording, they can't ask. But if you're watching this live right now, are you open to people asking some questions?
If they're still awake, they're welcome to ask.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Does anybody have any question? Everything you wanted to know about the Hare Krishna movement, or you've been interested or inspired by the comments that Sarvatma Das have made this morning and want to make a comment or ask a question? The floor is open. You can just unmute yourself. If you raise your hand, I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time. So just unmute yourself and raise your question. You may have stunned them into silence. Kevin, somebody's raised their hand. Kevin?
Hi, I understand that the Beatles spent some time in India practicing, I can't quite remember, but a certain branch of Hinduism. Did they encounter more Hare Krishna movement and devotees out when they were touring India? Or do you know if that was a case?
Well, the Beatles, they were in Wales giving a concert, and they met the Maharishi, the followers of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi with transcendental meditation. And the Maharishi invited them to his ashram in Rishikesh in northern India. And the Beatles did go there. Some songs came out of that excursion. And I guess John Lennon was a little cynical about it, as he was his part of his personality, and Paul McCartney was a little light on the philosophy, as it is his personality, and George was very serious. So the one who actually took it upon himself to pursue further than what meets the eye was George, who even when he came to the West again, he met with actually George was always very open. He met with different people, different practices, but he always came back to Krishna consciousness. Matter of fact, when he was about to die, he died of cancer a few decades ago. He actually flew in some of the Krishna devotees to be with him at the last moment. So I think it is very telling, the people that you want by your deathbed side are some of the most important in your life. And he actually went to many temples. Every time he will have a concert, he will go to whatever city it was. If there was a temple, he was always there. He was always meeting devotees. And the other Beatles, I mean, Ringo was very favorable, and so were the other ones. But and even commented that one time they were taking a break. The Beatles hardly took any breaks, and they were sailing in the Aegean Sea in Greece, and both John and George were playing ukulele, and they were playing the Hare Krishna mantra, and they said they played for hours. They had no idea, if it was day or night, when they started, when they ended. It was a fascinating experience. Of course, George actually also had chanting beads, and so he would do the individual meditation. I don't know if that answers your query, Kevin, but that's the best I have.
No, thank you for the insight. It's almost like the Beatles, like, had that kirtan out at sea.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Welcome.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Kevin. Well, Sarvatma Das, do you have any question for us or for the students?
Yeah. Why do you take a global religions class? Is it compulsory?
No.
It is part of you can't graduate unless you take. There must be, I imagine that there must be some interest in what's out there. What's the program? What's beyond my little house in the suburbs and my parents' religion? So why would people take a global religion class? Oh, Kevin, do you have an answer for me?
This is more of my personal insight, and obviously I can't speak for the rest of the people in this class, but I think that religion and language are two of the easiest ways to better understand people around the world or cultures that you are not familiar with. Obviously, some religions are more open to being studied by outsiders, and that's why language serves as another medium in order to try to enter or understand another culture.
Good answer. So you speak more than one language, I imagine. And
English is pretty much my first language, but I was kind of raised on Vietnamese, but I don't speak it enough to say I confidently say I can speak it.
okay. Is your family from a Buddhist tradition?
Yeah, my family is traditionally, I think they would be considered Pure Land Buddhist, but a lot of members of my family also participate in the Nippon San Myohoji Japanese Zen Buddhist sect. So I spent a lot of time out in New York and Massachusetts at some of the stupas out there and chanting in a similar way of the Hare Krishna chant. We chanted the Daimoku, which is the Lotus Sutra in Japanese.
Interesting. You know that Buddha, who was born in India, about 2,500 years ago, he was predicted in the Vedic literatures, in the Bhagavad Purana, in the first canto. There are 12 cantos to it. It was predicted who his parents will be, where he would get enlightenment, that he was in Gaya, Bihar, and et cetera, et cetera. And it says that he came actually to stop violence because there were, in the name of the Vedas, people were performing all sorts of sacrifices, killing defenseless animals. So he actually taught the philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence. And it all started from India. I mean, India has a good start on spirituality.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. And some of things in manufacturing in India, they're not so good, but that is one of the good ones.
Well, Sarvatma, this has been a real treat to have you back in the class again and tell your story and to share with us your own your own spiritual tradition and your own spiritual sensibilities with people. It's a wonderful treat, and I'm glad to know that you're doing well. That at least for the time, Denver is doing well, and you have a bright future and an interesting one ahead of you, as we all have. We all on different paths, and but all paths lead, I think, to some kind of glorious future.
On that note, there was an old man in the temple, in the Hare Krishna temple in Miami. He used to say, in Krishna consciousness, the pay is not very much, but the retirement plan is out of this world.
Okay, we'll take that as your last message. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we keep in touch wherever we are.
Okay, all the best to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Much. And we'll see you all, everybody else. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.